Yes, it is that season again where we do get to do something special as the Uganda Revenue Authority. And of course, this particular episode of the Live Tax Lounge is coming to you straight from the service lobby at the URA Tower. And as you can see from the writings on the wall, we are celebrating you, heroes of Uganda. And this goes to every single taxpayer that is out there, the ones who are already contributing and the ones who are just about to get started on their journey. We are also saying thank you, and we put together a special package to celebrate, to show you, because the Wazungu say that love is a verb. So if it is not put in action, then it is a bit pointless. And action is what has been prepared, and it is what we are going to be getting into this morning. And with me on set is none other than the Acting Commissioner, Legal Services and Board Affairs, as well as the Assistant Commissioner of Public and Corporate Affairs, and their mantles are quite significant. But before we get into the specifics of the show, let us get to know who these people are in just a bit. Starting with the powerful lady on my immediate right. Stella, good morning.
Good morning, Solomon.
Welcome to the Live Tax Lounge.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here.
What do you do here exactly? For someone who is interacting with you for the very first time.
What do I do here? And that means URA.
Yes.
I'm the Acting Commissioner, Legal Services and Board Affairs. I lead a team of lawyers that offer, among others, advisory services to staff and also to clients. But also we protect URA in as far as transactional matters. We offer advisory in procurement. We also collect debts. So the role that the team performs is multifaceted, and but yet we use legal tools to do the work that we do. So advisory is a big part of it. Yes.
Fantastic. She leads a team of powerful legal minds that are offering their services exclusively to URA. And this morning we have her on set, and we are going to be having this conversation with her. On the extreme right, excuse me, on the extreme right is a gentleman who is responsible for taking jabs from the public, as well as responding to the public with good content and good information about the revenue service. And it's none other than Ibrahim Bossa. But for those who are interacting with him for the very first time, this is the part where he gets to say good morning to you and to share very briefly about exactly what he does here.
Good morning, Solomon, and to our viewers. Ibrahim Bossa by name once again. I'm the Assistant Commissioner for Public and Corporate Affairs. I basically manage the engagements of the authority with the Muntu wa bulijjo. So anything to do with information, anything to do with our brands as an institution, anything to do with issues that need to be handled, especially at the corporate level, we put that together and we make it easy for people to access these services. People like to call me and my colleagues Omwogezi w'ekitongole. So yes, usually when you need a voice of the institution, the Commissioner General has delegated that I can be able to speak, but I have an army of colleagues that I work with in basically executing this. So many of people may have seen us in different facets. You either have seen us in games, if it comes to corporate leagues and the URA FC and the kids league, we're always there. So we basically are engaging. Some people know us in tax education, where we are creating awareness and sensitization so that people can understand their obligations and responsibilities. People just see us probably at exhibitions, you know, at events. And so there are a lot of facets where we, but the ultimate thing is basically to create convenience so that the public can see us and interact with us as a corporate citizen of this country.
Thank you so much, Ibra, for painting that picture. And that brings us to the very reason why we are here this morning, and that is to discuss the Client Service Week 2023 that URA has actually put together. And the Client Service Week, by extension, is part of a bigger product that URA is extending to the taxpayers over these 2 months, and that is none other than the taxpayers' appreciation season. But the main question in the room is, do we really need this? Ibra, if you may, do we need to be celebrating the taxpayers of Uganda?
Last financial year, the taxpayers put together for our collection over 25 trillion Uganda shillings. Now remember, this comes amidst a backdrop of the after effects of the COVID. We are looking at inflation in the country. We are battling with imported inflation and even the after effects of the Ukraine and Russia war. Generally, business and individuals have been struggling for the last couple of years, ever since the COVID pandemic. But if Ugandans can put together for our collection over 25 trillion, they need to be thanked. We need to be grateful for their ability to be able to contribute to the welfare of this country. This financial year, we're looking at collecting over 30 trillion Uganda shillings. And the very same people, we expect that they understand their obligations to be able to meet this cause. Why can't we be able to thank Ugandans? I think we have to be very grateful that Ugandans have been able to work with us to be able to achieve this. In our circles, we are saying last year, we actually hit the target. But we're hitting the target because the taxpayer was able to make their due consideration in terms of tax obligations. So every year, it's custom at the Uganda Revenue Authority that we get down with the taxpayer. We thank the taxpayer. We can rejoice with the taxpayer. We can give back to the taxpayer. So we have that season, which is right now, that we call the taxpayer appreciation season. And we have a number of activities that we have lined up for this engagement with the taxpayer. We began this on the 16th of last month with a Thanksgiving. We make sure that we're in the good hands of the Lord. So we had a very big do here, and a number of people were able to turn up both physically and others online. And we basically ourselves to the Lord, thank the Lord for our lives, thank the Lord for our country, thanks the Lord for the leadership of this country, but most of all, thanks the Lord for the diligent taxpayers who are meeting their obligations in terms of tax payments. Other activities that are unrolling, and one which is coming actually tomorrow, is the launching of the ICT strategy. Now, this is big. Why? Because there has been a come here, which is the gist of the matter, and to be starting on the 17th to the 19th, we shall be at the Akamwesi. We are going to make a do where we collect ourselves as URA and our services and collect other agencies to make it simple for the taxpayer to be able to access usually some difficult services. If a national ID has been a difficult issue, you go and queue for it. We are partnering with NIRA so that on that day you can get national ID issues sorted. If you have been having issues with URSB, maybe convenience and ABCD, we are saying on that day, we are partnering with URSB, and on 3 days, you can come and sort out an issue there. URA, many things, people are struggling with registration, people struggle with the TIN registrations, people are struggling with ledger issues, with objections, and we are saying we will be there this time round to put a smile to our services and be able to serve the customer with diligence. We're also saying, much as we're serving you, it's a time for us to give back to the customer. We have services like yellow fever. There will be yellow fever vaccination. There will be blood donation. We know that our lives run on blood, and it is free blood. Nobody else. So many of us as staff, but also the public, is encouraged to come and donate blood. It shows a spirit of togetherness at the end of the day. So you'll find that this brings us together, but one or two things people will be able to see, that there are services that are easily accessible, which may be different from people's perception. We have people here like agents, for example, who have given us a bad name. They're not telling their clients that, oh, those guys are terrible. Those guys are so difficult right now. you know, but we need to put a different face on taxation. So we want to show the public how easy it is, and we shall be doing it near or in many of our service centers. All our service centers around the country will be open on that day to put a smile on your face and give you a service with a smile. Hopefully, there may be even a cake cutting. God knows.
I was about to go there. I was about to ask, will there be food?
So yes, so it's about a big do. So there are many other activities that we have lined up. We are going to be celebrating our authorized economic operators. It's also a big do. People who have diligently paid taxes on time with distinction, you know, in good amounts. People who do not have any issues with us. These are people who are given a VIP pass when it comes to tax obligations and clearance. We'll be celebrating them as well. We'll be having the tax derby. This is a football match between the taxman and leadership of the business, you know, business associations and the trade. It's an extravaganza, really. You get, I mean, I don't know how many people have seen John Rujoki Musinguzi in a pair of shorts. That's a brilliant moment for you to see a tall fella in a pair of shorts. So we're looking at this kind of happiness. It's getting together and just engaging. We'll be doing some CSR activities, basically to plant trees, to get our country green again. And this basically we're doing with the taxpayer. We have one icing on the cake, which is going to be the Taxpayer Appreciation Day. A number of taxpayers are going to be recognized for their contribution in terms of accurate, timely filing of their returns and payment of taxes. It's not about how much you pay as a taxpayer. It's about compliance. How quickly, how conveniently, how accurately are your filings in terms of returns? This is going to be happening here in a kind of grand red carpet kind of event. So we shall be people who are going to be awarded, but we're also going to do the same in the different regions. So the country has been mapped into 6 regions where we shall be having some open mind forums, and at those forums, regional winners in terms of compliant taxpayers will be awarded. So Solomon, it is a big extravaganza.
You get recognized in your own community before you get recognized at the national level.
Absolutely. You see, in the past, many people who have been getting awards have been the big guys, and it's understandable. The big guys have invested in accountants, in consultants, people who basically do the filing for them, and they're able to file accurate taxes. So they've been able to win some decent awards in the past. But then we have been listening, and the one probably Joe is saying, but now, if a company X that is a conglomerate is winning an award, when will I, Mr. Sands Limited, somewhere in Namakwekwe, be able to win an award? And we think that it is important that we can go local within a specific region and see people who are diligently doing well there before we can look at the national picture for the entire country. So everybody has a chance as long as you are complying with the tax obligations in terms of filing and payment of returns.
Thank you so much, Ibra, for really breaking it down. You've painted the picture that is the taxpayers' appreciation season in terms of the roadmap, the activities to expect, and you also gave us the why behind this activity, why URA always comes in to do this activity. But I do have a question for the head of legal in this our organization, and it's a question that ties into why we do what we do at URA. Twagala send. So someone out there might be wondering, is there a link between this season and the activities that we do to revenue mobilization? How does this season tie into revenue mobilization?
I thank you, Solomon, and to our viewers, this season fits in perfectly into revenue mobilization. Why? Because to say thank you is akin to the biblical story of the lepers. One came back to give thanks. Now, when you give thanks, it has an effect of luring you. It has an effect of encouraging you to keep giving, because there's a benefit in giving. So when we say thank you, to the taxpayer. We will have, first of all, told them that for the many years that URA has been in existence, you have walked the journey with us. You have not let us down. That last year we hit our target, and that because we have a 30 trillion on our hands, we can only get it because we recognize your efforts in paying your taxes. Of course, thank you is also a sign of professionalism. One of our core values is professionalism. Now, being professional as an institution, we are saying thank you because it's only right to be courteous. So we are celebrating our clients. The clients in this case are those who benefit from our services. And for us as URA, we have, everyone is a taxpayer for as long as you consume anything that is sold in this country, for as long as you have a job, for as long as you run a company, for as long as you're a student with the potential to turn into an employable state, but also even as students, you procure things even in your school environment. So it fits into revenue mobilization, particularly at this time, because we have tax laws that are newly passed. Now, it's at this point that we shall be able to speak to this taxpayer and offer advisory and tell them, wait a minute, there's section 40D of the TPC, which is waiving your interest and penalties, which is enabling you to clear the areas. So there's some motivation for you to pay your liability. So there's a lot to do with revenue mobilization. We shall be able to speak to the taxpayer and urge them to pay. We shall also talk to landlords and tell them, whoever has not been compliant, take this chance. Please pay what is due to URA so that you fit into the compliance bracket. So it's a lot to do with revenue mobilization because we give a face to humanity in doing this. We have done this several years, but even in the religious realm, you know, for every year that you celebrate a birthday, you're grateful to God. So it's a sign of gratitude to our taxpayers, a sign of gratitude to our staff, but also humanity dictates that you appreciate your environment. For example, we have that week where we are going to plant trees, tree planting as part of our CSR. We need a clean environment for us to be able to live in a beautiful country, for us to be able to enjoy the precincts of where we live and where we work. So there's a lot to do with the revenue mobilization, but also giving a human face that URA is as human as the taxpayer, puts us on an equal footing, and therefore revenue mobilization is part and parcel, and it's a perfect fit for this season. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stella, for breaking it down. Now, Stella, I live online, and I'm always getting inquiries from taxpayers and tax enthusiasts. You know, they are taxpayers. Then there are those people who really love things to do with tax, but are not yet in that position. Some of them are students, and they are very interested, and they are working their way towards becoming taxpayers, and they're always engaging. And one of the commonest questions that people tend to ask, and I know that you're the right person to ask this question because of the legalities involved, is the question of, as URA is giving back, are they going to give us some, is it tax holidays? Are they going to give me a payee holiday for just a month in the spirit of thanking me? What do you have to say about that?
Oh, thank you. That's a valid question, valid to the extent that it's when we take as URA through the taxes, it's critical that we give, and therefore I understand where the question is coming from. Now, we need to understand that tax is a creature of statute, meaning that you cannot impose a tax unless it is contained in the law. And also for us, the mandate to collect tax we get from the URA Act, which tells us, URA, you have a mandate to collect tax. It also means that for any taxpayer to get an incentive, it also has to be visited in the tax laws. So we have a number of incentives, and these are the things that we should be speaking about. We have incentives for strategic sectors. We have incentives for at the point of importation. We have those things that come in tax-free, medical equipment, agricultural. There's a vast list of those. So when we're having this engagement with our taxpayers next week, through the season, we should be able to speak to where they can benefit from. It's at that point that we shall also emphasize that section 40D that I talked about, to tell them that yes, even if you made errors, even if you have some interest, even if you have some penalties, for us as URA, we have the mandate to administer the provisions that government has given, to the extent that government has given us some form of amnesty. It has given the taxpayer amnesty. So we are going to speak to this amnesty. But we're also going to speak to other administrative mechanisms, initiatives that should benefit the taxpayer. For example, under our debt collection unit, we deal with bad debts, yes. But these debts, sometimes the taxpayer is not able to pay. He has imported a car and he can't afford to pay the taxes that are due. So what happens is we should be able to tell them that, you know, when you come to URA, you can engage and apply to the respective commissioners, and they will allow you to pay taxes in installment. Now that gives your business a chance to stabilize even as you're paying the taxes. You really will not allow businesses to go down because somebody has to pay tax, because we know that as URA, as an institution, it is only when businesses make profit that we can pay the taxes. And as URA, I know that we are, because of our clients. Without them, then we are not able to do our work. We are not able to hit the 30 trillion. The other initiatives that we may talk about are basically ADR, for example, if you have a dispute with URA. For taxes, usually you're required to pay 30% of the taxing dispute, where you have to take the matter for resolving in the tax appeals tribunal. But URA has in place an initiative that is premised under the TPC, and it allows us to have a meeting of minds with the taxpayers, to the extent that where there is a dispute, a taxpayer can apply to URA. The forms are on our website, and ask that he is considered under ADR. Under ADR, you just state the grounds and say whatever tax has been assessed by URA, I do not agree for these reasons. Oftentimes the reasons are valid. Now, in such circumstances, URA should be able to listen to the taxpayer. You go through a reconciliation, and that way the taxpayer, the client, will not be required to pay the 30%. Of course, this incentivizes the taxpayer because it will save time, it will save costs, but also save us as well time. So it's really giving back to society. So we shall be speaking to many of those initiatives when we as we celebrate the week. Now, my colleague.
There's a question that I would particularly like to ask you, because as the head of legal, you and the lawyer, there's an expectation of every practicing lawyer every year to give something back in a very legal way. And do we have something lined up in that space concerning that pro bono obligation and revenue mobilization and the client service week?
Yes, historically, pro bono services during this taxpayer appreciation season have been part and parcel of the wealth of activities and services that URA offers. Pro bono precisely means offering free legal services. And this package is usually to people who are of low income. However, for us, we as legal services have spoken to our colleagues, FIDA Uganda, whose mandate is to really give free legal services on home-related domestic issues. Then we've also engaged the Legal Aid Clinic. The Legal Aid Clinic, as you hear, is one that gives free legal aid services to the beneficiaries. And again, these are for low-income earners and those who are not able. We call them the indigent in law.
What was that word?
Indigent.
Indigent.
Yes.
Learning is taking place.
Yes, we call them the indigent in law. So we should be able to engage and work with our colleagues. So during the pro bono week, during the pro bono offers, we should be able to present FIDA. You will have Legal Aid Clinic. They will have their staff, and they will listen to you. Listening to the clients will be on a range of issues, from custody, from divorce-related, from domestic violence, from child welfare, land transactions, anything under the sun. Because you know, so they always say that for law you have to know about everything. And so for as long as we are able to offer advice together with our colleagues, we should be giving advice in the field. We are not limiting it to only tax, but it should cut across. We should be able to give you advice on wills. How do you write a will? Why do you need to have a will? Because that is planning for anyone that has life at this point in time. It's planning. Death is a fact of life. Actually, they said death and tax are the two things that you cannot avoid. So we shall speak to you about how to have a valid will so that you're able to protect what you've worked for. So the pro bono week will be there. We'll offer advice. We'll present ourselves. We shall be there for transaction advice. We shall be able for tax advice, financial, yes, for as far as we can go. So.
Thank you so much. It gladdens me that for this particular edition of the Pro Bono Week, URA is not just doing it alone. You've onboarded some very good friends in the Legal Aid Clinic and FIDA to give a service that is way beyond revenue or tax-related inputs. And I'm personally looking forward to it. I could be having an issue or two that I'll be bringing to your attention so that I'm able to benefit from that. We have some 10 to 15 minutes to go, and this is a very highly interactive session. So if you do have some questions that you would like to field, please, this is the moment where you get to share these questions, and the Assistant Commissioner of Public and Corporate Affairs will be able to take on some, as well as the Commissioner Legal Services and Board Affairs will also be able to take on some questions. I personally have just a few questions that I would like to run by the team. So bring the questions in. The chat room is open. We are taking questions on Twitter, or let's call it X. We are taking questions on YouTube because we are streaming there too. We are taking questions from Zoom, and we are also taking questions from Facebook. So if you do have a question that you would like to bring to our attention, this is the time. Ask anything about the week, ask anything about the season, and those questions will be responded to. I was somewhere yesterday speaking to a team of Rotaractors, and there was quite a volume of feedback that they had to share. Things to do with the way we serve, things to do with the way we apply the tax law, and about 2-3 elements stood out, and maybe these are the things that I would like to put on the table right here, because we are talking about service centricity right now. The first one was about the perception that URA is still significantly high-handed in the way that we offer service. It was a shocker for me, because the people who were speaking about this particular thing with passion. And I think this is the question that I would like to field to Ibra. What is URA doing about that perceived high-handedness in the way that we do serve our clients?
Thank you, Solomon, and to our viewers. URA has history. I could think that the high-handedness being made reference to holds true if you are looking at URA 10 years ago, 7 years ago, okay, 5 years ago. It's true, and probably there were reasons. It usually depends on the focus. We have about 4 types of taxpayers we deal with, Solomon. We have taxpayers who are compliant outright, 100%. And these are taxpayers we never lift a finger, will never basically write to. They just pay their taxes as and when they can. And for the records, 90% of the taxes we collect, for example, give last year, 90% of our collection was through voluntary contribution. People paying taxes. Only 10% of people fall in the next 3 categories I will mention. We have people who are knowledgeable about their obligations and their rights to pay tax, but will be reluctant, especially if they have another competing. I'm supposed to be paying taxes this month, but I have to take kids back to school. I have a wedding to sponsor, and actually money may be misused. Now, these are people usually we send a lot of reminders, and maybe they become uncomfortable. So we have to keep in their faces, and it's understandable. Then we have also a group which is aware of their obligations and their rights to pay taxes, but they would say, catch me if you can. I will only pay if you show up on my doorstep. I will only pay when I am coerced. You get me? These are people we also know, and we have profiled them, and we know them. And sometimes those people will also be dealt with. That's why you see sometimes we're heavy on tax education, because we want, if we have engaged and educated you and nothing is happening, then we may have to enforce. And this is measurable enforcement. It depends on an individual. There's nobody who is enforced upon simply because you didn't pay taxes and somebody shows up at your home with a gun, right? But remember, we also have another category of taxpayer who fall in the category of smugglers, for example. These are economic saboteurs. They know what is required, they know the law, they know everything, but they say, we will not. Instead, we'll invest and do everything possible to do otherwise. These are people you find with guns as well. They actually are a danger to us as taxmen. Now, those are people usually that you find that our enforcement is catching on the water. They are running across the borders, and cars are rolling. So people get an impression that what is happening with an enforcement in smuggling probably is happening in somebody. You'll find that URA has decided to change the perception of staff. We have a elaborate program on change management to change our attitude, our behavior for all staff of URA. And one of the reasons we are doing this taxpayer appreciation is for people actually to experience us. People should be able to see us giving world-class service. And it is happening now. Even our staff are prepared to show that this enforcement you have seen on television, because you see it's dramatic. News and social media plus the radios would love it. They will show it to you. But very few people where we are showing world-class service makes the news. And yet we have these records, we have received recommendation, we have many staff who have been praised openly, but also quietly, of the delicate and decent service they are offering. So we believe that the good that is happening right now, and a lot of people in URA are doing good, should be seen out in the public. And that's why we are making efforts to have a taxpayer appreciation season, for us to have a client service week. People should see us in action. Usually, an action of one bad person could actually spoil the name of very many good people at URA.
True.
We are aware about that. But we are doing everything that is possible. Policies and guidelines have been put in place, operating procedures on how staff should behave. That's why we tell the public, if you see a URA officer who is acting below standards, who is acting in an uncouth manner, whose integrity is lacking, please let us know, because we will act on it. We are saying, if you see it, tell us, because we will sort it.
If you see it, tell us, because we will
sort it.
say
it, we'll sort it.
I like how you put it down.
Actually, I just wanted to add a rider to that.
Please.
If you see it, call the toll-free lines. I think there's no better time of transparency and openness to feedback than we've had in URA's history than today, because we are constantly calling upon our taxpayers to take benefit of the initiatives such as the touch point. You write your issue, we should be able to resolve your issue. We have very strict timelines in giving back and getting back to our taxpayers, our clients. We have service level agreements that govern departments. Now, these also ensure that when a taxpayer raises a complaint, you should be able to respond to that complaint as fast as possible. Now, in terms of the high-handedness, I also wanted to comment about the fact that the category that may be recipients of the high-handedness could be the non-compliant. Why? Because in debt collection, a division for which I head, we have taxpayers who are given the facility of the MOU, pay your taxes in installments. So what happens? You will draft the MOU and invite them to come and sign. You can imagine that many of them will not even honor the request to come and sign that MOU. And so what do? You engage, you keep engaging them, you hope that they will come and honor the request to sign the MOU and of course partake from the same. But when they're not forthcoming, then at that point URA has no choice but to use other tools. All the tools that we use in enforcement are legal tools. Apart from the smuggling aspect, of course, even smuggling and seizure, all those are premised in the law. Now, even under debt collection, you will use warrants of distress, you will use travel bans, you will impound, you will auction, but all these are at the tail end. It comes after very many attempts to engage the taxpayer. And so while this is not coming through, then URA has no choice but to enforce. But even in enforcing, I've seen instances where a taxpayer has an MOU, will not be strict. We shall expect that where a taxpayer is not able to pay as agreed, then you can request the CG, you can request the commissioner to allow you to pay in even more bigger installments, because we understand that business may not work as expected. So URA is making very, very deliberate efforts to ensure that there is a human face to our tax collection, because we know that when you suffer reputational loss and damage, then it is for us to lose. Yes, I may agree that there are exceptional cases, but SCPCA here has said that there are policies in place. We have a whole compliance team. In the news the other day, they were saying that URA has sacked 84 staff for the last 3 years. This is coming up because we want to show the public that we do not tolerate the lack of integrity, we do not tolerate the lack of professionalism, and our policies dictate just that. So in whatever we do, we ensure that we serve professionally, but also that our image is the right image. Our image is professional. Our image speaks to the fact that it is difficult to pay taxes. So how about that person whom we're asking to pay? We need to be nice, we need to be courteous, we need to be professional, and we need to be civil. And so we do that in everything that we do as URA, and we are committed to that. Thank you.
Thank you so much for responding to that particular one. It was an itchy question. Another itchy question was, and it came up as a concern still from that forum. A gentleman said that someone, because we are now talking about client centricity, should be able to protect mid-level companies from the chokehold that the big corporate companies have on them. He said that and I became confused, so I probed. I was like, please say that in English. And he broke it down. He said that he's a supplier and he supplies to quite a number of bigger companies. I might not get into their names. And there is a growing trend by these bigger companies to hold on to the payment a little longer than the time that is acceptable. Some of them have a 90-day window, and they've sort of made it seem like company policy. So you supply, and remember, when you supply, on the tax side, the VAT expectation actually activates because a supply has been made. But you have to wait for about 90 days, sometimes plus an additional 1 month, for that payment to come through. At the point of the payment coming through, about 4 months have gone down the line when it comes to that particular transaction, and the VAT expectation potentially accumulates interest. So the guy was asking, how can we then be protected from the need to have to go to a bank to borrow money to meet the VAT obligation so that it doesn't accumulate, into interest and whatnot? And it seemed like an issue that was about policy, was about protection of the industry. Is there anything that can be done to protect those mid-level companies from the perceived chokehold that the bigger corporates have on them?
Thank you, Solomon, and viewers. What you speak points to policy, and again, there is no perfect timing. for discussions such as this. What happens usually when we have taxpayers who have challenges, especially policy challenges, because that one I see is touching time of payment and the internal workings of the corporations who do not pay the mid-level companies on time, but yet when VAT is being calculated, the component of interest is there. I also know VAT dictates on the time of payment. It's very, very critical, the time of payment, and that is when this comes running. So for me, I think the way forward for that and the remedy should be in a policy policy change. And the policy and budget cycle in recent times is quite consultative, and at the moment, I know that a Ministry of Finance, which takes the lead in that, is receiving a lot of proposals. Those can also come through URA, but also Ministry of Finance is engaging stakeholders to prepare them for this cycle. That if you have any policy challenge, for as long as it's not an operational challenge within the workings of the companies, if it's a policy challenge and there's justification that these mid-level companies are being choked on account of the workings of the bigger companies, then it's only prudent that we come up with proposals, we look at industry practice, we look at other jurisdictions, and then present that for discussion. So once that is understood and appreciated, even through the value chain, the chain of parliament and the assent of the bills, then we should be able to have those supported, because again, it is in our interest as URA to first of all know our clients, know their business, but most importantly, know their challenges, because their challenges really enable us appreciate on how we should handle them when it comes to payment of taxes and when it comes to assessment and of course dealing with them. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. Now I do have some questions from LinkedIn and we are going to go through them really quickly here. The first one is appreciation from Asia or Asia, Akandinda, depending on where you went. And Asia is a procurement officer somewhere in this our country who is saying, I'm here listening and learning. Thank you, URA, for this. Just flowers.
Oh, thank you. Appreciated.
Then we move on to a gentleman called Joshua Clark, Detroit Magero, many names. And Joshua Clark is saying, but you should revise your tax terms. This is because you exempt foreign companies and organizations, and you overtax the poor and the low-income earners. This is a common perception that is actually coming through, and maybe one of you will actually speak to this, because this could be a case of someone actually not being aware of the balance that exists within the existing tax terms or tax laws. We do have a comment here from Peter Carlos Ebiayu, another procurement professional are on right now, and he's saying, good morning, URA. I applied for VAT on, someone applied for VAT on my behalf in February, but up to now, I have not been helped. What should I do? It's coming to 10 months now, yet Sorority and Bale have not been of help in terms of reconciliation of my statement. I think he means TIN profile.
Or refund. VAT what? VAT refund? It's okay, Bushal.
It could be a refund, could be VAT registration. He hasn't been very clear about exactly what about VAT he was referring to. But what is very clear is that it's been 10 months and it's basically been cricket from URA. And he's concerned, so he saw this opportunity. We are talking about service centricity. Why not put it right there for attention? Then the other one is a question that is coming from this is the same question from that gentleman, from Peter Ebiao. These seem to be the questions that are coming from LinkedIn at this point in time. Let's first respond to those.
Okay. I'll speak to those. I'll start with Peter Ebiao. Peter, thank you for that question, and of course it's a concern on your part, pointing to our service component. Now, we are speaking to how best to can serve our clients, our taxpayers, and here is one exception where a taxpayer has not been served in the time that is expected. But I also heard in his question that it's a matter of reconciliation this usually requires the cooperation of the taxpayer as well. So I hope, Peter, you presented all the necessary documents to be able to inform that reconciliation. And where all that information is given, ideally our staff should be able to present the reconciliation and resolve this issue within the prescribed time within our service level agreements. At the moment, URA is rolling out a performance management tool that emphasizes accountability. It also emphasizes transparency. Now, I imagine that station that hasn't done that for 10 months, whether they will fit within the demands of this tool. But just to give Mr. Ibiao the comfort that we shall pursue the matter with the sorority team and ensure that he's served. If it's an issue of refund, I hope it is not because maybe sometimes we don't have the funds that are required, but of course 10 months is no justification. So we want to pledge to follow up that with the team and ensure that Mr. Ibiao is served as he ought to be, because it is within his right that he served, but also hoping that he gave us the information that is required to serve him. Otherwise, the reconciliation should not be a very difficult issue. Now, on the second one, that is of, it's regarding the progressiveness of the tax, and it's pointing to the fact that there is lack of equality in the way the tax laws are structured. I needed to to speak to the tenets of taxation, and one of the principles is that it should not be discriminatory. There should be equality in the way we structure our tax policy and our tax laws. Now, URA is guided by that in administering taxes. So first of all, when it comes to employment, our employment bracket is progressive. Payee is progressive. There are bands. There is a 30% of those below 10 million, and there's a 40%, meaning that the rich or those who earn more bear a heavier tax burden. And so this is one of the avenues that the policy design is to ensure that there's a balance, that those who earn less should not have the same burden as those who earn more. So for me, I know as a matter of fact that it's an issue that is a candidate for tax education. We should educate our taxpayers so that this misconception is done away with. Then also, when it comes to the low income generating companies compared to the higher income, and also for maybe the foreign ones vis-a-vis the locals, that has also been a very common misconception. And to that, I say that we have incentives that have a leaning towards the locals. When you look at the Income Tax Act, we have sections 21AF. Under the VAT Act, we have sections. Under the Excise Duty Act, we have provisions. And all these provisions outline strategic sectors, from logistics to mattress making companies to IT. All these companies have a threshold. But the threshold for the Ugandan citizen, East African citizen, basically, is lower than for the foreign investor. In fact, it also dictates that for you to benefit from these incentives, you have to employ a majority, 70%, as Ugandans. So there is a lot that we need to understand and appreciate in these our laws, knowing that Uganda is one of those countries that has a wealth of exemptions. We are highly exemplified, and therefore our countrymen should be able to benefit from these exemptions. And the misconception that the citizens are disadvantaged compared to the foreigners doesn't hold true, because government has been deliberate in ensuring that they are given what they deserve as citizens.
Thank you so much. You've really addressed that particular concern quite capably. I don't know if at this point Ibra has some response to give to those questions that were asked prior. I
think anybody could have put it better than Madam Stella. One statistic for people to think about. About 80% of our revenue collection, just give it a thought of last year's revenue collection. 80% of our revenue collection is paid by about 200,000 taxpayers.
You could
hear me? 80% of our revenue collection is paid by about 200,000 taxpayers. The balance, 20%, is paid by the bulk that is left. Remember, our tax register about 3.5 million taxpayers, but 200,000 are the ones that contribute 80% of our collection. So 3 million plus are contributing only 20%. But when you dig deep, the 200,000 taxpayers are basically companies. You get me? So that is just a figure for somebody to think about. 2, the tax laws as explained by Madam Stella. You do not pay tax if you do not have an income. We do not tax losses if you are not earning a turnover of over 10 million shillings a year. We do not ask tax. You get that? So that's the thing to think about. And 3, the regime that we are running in this country, just like in many other countries, is a self-assessment regime. We do not come and predetermine the tax. You actually know your business better. You basically do your accounts and declare whatever profitability you have, and then that is where you pay taxes. Meaning that if you have an assessment you do not agree with, 1, you can object to it. 2, Madam Stella and team have another opportunity for alternative dispute resolution. If you are not happy with the outcome of an objection, you can go for alternative dispute resolution, which saves you time, money, and inconvenience going to a court of law. So the regime we are running is friendly, is flexible, and we can actually engage in discussion to make sure that we can have a meeting of minds between we, the tax collectors, and the people paying the taxes. All 3, if thought about, I think we are making progress and we can only get better.
Thank you so much, Ibra, for taking us on that mind trip. These are things that we perhaps hadn't thought about, but when you come to think of it, you get amazed, and you ask yourself quite a number of questions. And questions is what we are still receiving, and we have some too that have come through by way of Zoom. One is from Molly Namanya, and this is a business associate at Rockstone Management, and she's saying thank you for the customer service week. We look forward to tax holidays. She's still having it twisted in that space. And we also need a workshop. We also need workshops to reach the unprivileged people. And I think that's a pregnant point, because we are here on Zoom and all these nice platforms, and we are engaging with people who can actually afford smart devices to keep up with this conversation. But she's wondering if we are offering something similar to the everyday person out there. The next question is a question from Jimmy Abonga. And Jimmy is saying, I've not had any work since 2015 when my company was registered, and my company collapsed prematurely, but the tax that has been levied to me is scary. Jimmy opened the company, but it hasn't had business since about 2015, and it collapsed, and the tax that is still being levied on him is something that is scaring him. Again, this is a matter of tax education. If we could take on these 2 questions, then we get into the parting shot, we shall be able to call it a show. The question from Namanya about what URA is doing about the everyday person.
Okay, thank you very much. Uganda is actually a big country when you come to think about it. Population is now over 45 million. But I'll tell you about some initiatives that we're doing, and hopefully it could be in your area at some point in time. Okay? In the CBD, between now and end of December, we're going to have 97 workshops for traders in the CBD, and these workshops are in their localities. We basically are on any of the buildings you see in the building in the CBD there. We are mobilizing through the local leaders, through the association leadership, and also we put announcements on the radio to ask people to come and attend those workshops. In a typical week, we are having about 3-4 workshops happening, basically to help the people at the grassroots in the trade district to be able to get in terms with taxation, but also for us to have a listening ear on what their problems are having. We are having for this financial year running, we're going to be doing 280 tax catalysts, meaning we'll be coming in your area, in a trading center, at the market area, and we'll be staging there, basically to be able to engage with the people in the market, be able to help them with taxation issues, but also impart information and knowledge in terms of taxation. We're doing this financial year 400 onboarding sessions. Onboarding is handholding. If you are a new taxpayer, you're registered on the tax register, we invite you and have a cup of tea with you and discuss you to show you your rights, your responsibilities, how you file a return, and we handhold you. This usually takes us a period of about 4 months. So if you are new on the tax register, an invitation is coming to you, please come to your local office, URA office, and you will be engaged in matters of taxation and being helped. So this is basically what we do. We have our Tujenge mobile tax office. We're going to have 180 excursions around the country in different regions. So we'll be coming to a locality near you and basically doing door to door, make sure we can reach the last person. If you have not interacted with us on any of those occasions, you will hear us on radio, you will be seeing us on television, and again on platforms like this. We look for every opportunity to be able to engage. Some people have been creative enough. If you're in an association, you are a lottery club, we all even allow invitations. Send us an email, send us a WhatsApp. You have seen our WhatsApp number, and say we are in this locality, we're a group of fishermen, we're a group of traders who would want somebody to be able to take us through tax education. We will send you resource persons to help you. So either invite us or we will be coming to a place within your locality.
The only place I've not seen URA going to for purposes of tax education yet might be a shrine. Because I've seen URA in church. Some church sessions have actually been, done. I've seen URA in the mosques. If anyone has been following the Salam Barazas, there's a chance they've seen Hajat Hafsa engaging different communities all over this country in a mosque setting. And the same thing has been happening in Worship Harvest and all these other churches that offer a platform for people to actually have discussions with their flock concerning tax purposes. So I think the readiness can't be doubted. Where the 2 or 3 or 4 people meet, you will be there for tax purposes. There was this question from Jimmy, the one about the company that isn't doing business but is continuing to receive alerts, assessments, and whatnot. What do you have to say about that situation?
Okay, thank you, Jimmy. I want to imagine that whereas the company closed in 2015, Jimmy's company must have had some liability, but also what causes that position is that taxes attract interest. They attract penalties. So if for the season prior to 2015, when the company was still in existence, he had some tax liability, then it holds true that that communication might be coming in. And oftentimes, URA has what we call administrative assessments. These we do only to compel the taxpayer to come to us. We've emphasized the fact that URA is open to having a meeting of minds and to engaging the taxpayers. Lately, the CG has been saying, engage, engage, engage. We actually get incensed by staff who do not engage the taxpayers before they take certain action. So it would be prudent for Jimmy to approach URA. And I want to emphasize that there is no better time to benefit from a tax holiday than this, because the window that we have for this tax waiver under Section 40D of the TPC is only until 31st December. So it could be likely that the bulk of Jimmy's liability is interest and penalties. So he might have a small principal, and that principal, if it is cleared, then he should be able to be clean, to have a clean ledger. The business, of course, the business closed. I don't know whether it's legally closed, whether he has the documents so all that will be considered, and all the circumstances will be considered. Whether or not you're earning a profit, that will be considered. He will present probably his books of accounts. Of course, there's limitation regarding how far you can go, but this liability is one of those those that may be for informing our big areas portfolio. And as URA, we have an initiative to make sure that we have a clean areas portfolio. So companies falling in the category of Jimmy's company should be able to approach us, approach DT, and we have a discussion. We should be able to resolve that.
Thank you so much, Stella, for really breaking it down. And maybe I just need to remind the taxpayers that the day you get a TIN is the day URA gets into a relationship with you. And while it is okay for people to ghost each other in relationships, you cannot ghost URA. It is one of those relationships where if we are in it, the only way we can end it is through formal means. So Jimmy perhaps should have considered really coming to URA and informing URA that this company has actually closed, because I think there's a legal process that can actually enable him to deactivate a TIN profile, and that relationship is actually closed. It is a situation that we don't really like, because we want every registered taxpayer to be in it for the long haul, but there are always exceptions, there are always special cases where something has got to give. But ghosting should never be the option, because this assessment will continue to come for as long as that relationship is still presumed to be active. There are some flowers here from Moziransa Faziri from LinkedIn, and this is a MOOB student, and Faziri is saying, one thing I have liked about this URA is the issue of trying to reach down to the people. I really like it. He's appreciating the way URA is actually reaching down, reaching out to the people.
Thank you.
It is at this point that I would like to invite the Assistant Commissioner of Public and Corporate Affairs to give his parting shots first, Akatale Keka, and then after the Acting Commissioner, Legal Services and Border Affairs will do the same.
You, our viewers, it has been an absolute pleasure to engage. Would like to send a message on behalf of the Uganda Revenue Authority that we are transforming. The Uganda Revenue Authority is undergoing a tremendous transformation. We are improving, we are changing, we are exceeding expectations in terms of our people, in terms of our processes, in terms of our systems. We are upholding integrity, we are changing mindsets, and we would like to be able to give you an exceptional and excellent service. Please come during the customer service week and engage with us. We also want to hear from you. We enjoy the constructive criticism, because that helps us to improve further. So like we're saying, if you see us, any of us, as staff of the Uganda Revenue Authority that are performing below standards, are performing with lack of integrity, please tell us. If you see it, say it, we will sort it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ibra, for those parting shots. Stella, over to you.
Thank you. To our viewers, I want to thank you for the opportunity, but also thank you for giving your time to listen in to us as we share what is coming through the Client Service Week. It's in our transformational culture to speak and walk the talk of service to our clients. We acknowledge the fact that you, our taxpayers, are king, and for us who only hold a mandate to collect what is due to government, what is due to run our country. And so for this Client Service Week, I want to appeal to you, I want to urge you to come in large numbers. As we say thank you, we want to serve you. URA has opened out its house. We are transparent, and we want to go as far as we can to ensure that you understand everything that URA is able to offer, but also that we can hear from you. Positive feedback, negative feedback, there's always a solution to a challenge. So we cherish you, our taxpayers, and we are here to serve, and what better way to serve than during the Client Service Week. So we hope to see you in large numbers, both online and offline, and we await the feedback. Thank you for God and my country.
Thank you so much, Stella. It is at that point where we get to bring a close to this particular show, which has been very warm, which has been very engaging. You've asked so many questions. More questions are coming through, and we shall pick them, and we shall probably attend to them in the URA feedback loop, which is just about to start. And don't go nowhere, because up next is also a Tax Tuesday. There's going to be a serving and the topic that is coming your way is really beautiful. And from us at URA TV, from the people that you don't get to see, Irene on camera, Ebenezer, Trevor Sentongo, as well as Paul on production, together with Alexander and Priska, the producer. This is from all of us saying adios.